Welcome to Illustrated Beards, Episode 2, brought to you by the Fantasy Shop, best in comics and games since 1981. I am Jason.
I am Nate.
Tonight, my reviews are going to be on a couple of books from this week. Justice League of America #2, really excellent book. Wish I could have started with #1, but there you go. And Superior Spider-Man #6. My trade review is not actually a trade. It is a illustrated Star Wars book. It is concept art for the movies, and then some, what I think is probably some new art in here.
I think there is
as
some
well.
new art, yeah. Is it all one guy, or is it just a collection of art?
I don't know. It's, I mean, obviously different artists.
Okay, yeah,
you can
yeah,
see,
it's not all one.
you know. So yeah, it's just different concept art and stuff that they've done for the movies.
And I will be reviewing this week another Star Wars book, like I did last week. This is the beginning of a downward spiral into reading every Star Wars book for me, I think, and I have Brian Wood to thank for that. But it's Star Wars Legacy #1, follow-up to an old series that helped get me into comics. And then I've got a one-shot off Dark Horse. I just realized all of the books I'm reviewing this week are from Dark Horse. Until I literally just read this a moment ago, while we were preparing to film this, I was going to do New Avengers until I read this. New Avengers was excellent, but this is what I'm going to review. It's a one-shot. I'll have another chance to do New Avengers. It's Michael Avon Oeming's Wild Rover and the Sacrifice. And then my trade this week is going to be The Massive. Fantastic book, and we will talk about that in a little bit.
And then the comic we've decided to review together is Constantine #1.
#1.
Yeah. Very cool book, and we'll go into both of our opinions about it.
Controversial.
When we get to it. So I guess I'll start this week with Superior Spider-Man #6. I have said to many of you that have come in here, and I'm saying this to everybody who just watches us, Superior Spider-Man is a great book. If you've ever been a fan of Spider-Man in your life, you owe it to yourself to check out Superior Spider-Man. A lot of people were pissed off or just generally upset about the idea of Peter Parker not being Peter Parker anymore. It's still Peter Parker's body, but it's Doc Ock's mind. It's a really weird thing, and if you want to know... Spoiler alert. If you want to know more about how that happened, the last 3 issues of The Amazing Spider-Man, so 698 through 700, explain how that all went down.
It's a very well-written arc, too.
Yeah. It is... jumping into Superior Spider-Man was amazing. I didn't really think I was going to like it at all. But it was a really good book starting out. They're up to issue 6 now. Just some of the things that have changed. Doc Ock's in control of Peter Parker's body, and he's definitely a more brutal, efficient Spider-Man. He doesn't have the same kind of whimsical, smart-ass attitude that Peter had when he was Spider-Man. He was behind the wheel.
His version of justice is a lot darker.
Yeah. For example, a couple of issues ago, a villain called Massacre escaped from prison and went on a killing spree, just slaughtering a whole bunch of people. And when Spider-Man finally caught up to him, he, kind of beat him to a bloody pulp, and then picked up one of his guns and pointed it right at Massacre's head. Onlookers all standing around, and there's an old man standing there who yells to him, "Do it." And he does. He kills Massacre in front of everybody. In this world right now, too, Jonah Jameson is the mayor of New York. Really kind of an interesting twist on a character who we've always been used to as the head of the Daily Bugle. But he doesn't ostracize Spider-Man because of this. He is actually welcoming this new brutal attitude that Spider-Man's taking toward crime. And this issue's no exception. The characters, the villains that pop up into it are Jester, and I'm having trouble remembering what the other one's name is.
It's on her head, or his head.
Speed, wait a minute.
That's not Speedster.
No.
Is it?
Screwball. Yeah.
Screwball.
Screwball and Jester. Just goofy. They're not really villains. They're pretty much just filming themselves embarrassing people and putting it on the internet, and all the hits they're getting from these videos they're putting up, they're using to rob people of their identities and steal their money and stuff like that. So real, like I said, not really criminals, but...
It's like the Marvel version of Catwoman. except like even more tame.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, they embarrass J. Jonah Jameson while he's having a press conference. Like that's their big setup for what's going on in this issue. And J. Jonah Jameson, kind of like the red phone for Batman, now has a direct line to Spider-Man. Everybody remembers the red phone. So he has a direct line to Spider-Man, so he calls him, and Spider-Man, he tells him that he wants these people taken down, and Spider-Man at first is kind of laughing it off like it's some kind of joke. And eventually, Jameson convinces him to go after them. So he sends his spider bots. That's something that he's been doing in the Superior Spider-Man. He's built these little spider robots that are...
They're essentially Ockbots that look like spiders.
Exactly. And they're crawling all over the city, and they give him eyes everywhere, so where he can still have a life and be Spider-Man. So he sends them out to find him, and he goes off and he does his things for the day, and he has a meeting with a professor. He's trying to get his doctorate. And when they finally locate them, he goes to them, and they use this as an opportunity for another video. They're about to fight Spider-Man. It's a big thing. And Spider-Man, they kind of, you know, they're making fun of him. They are embarrassing him on camera and stuff like this. And with Ock behind the wheel, he very quickly just kind of becomes pissed off by this and brutally beats them, like, to a bloody pulp. You know, to the brink of death. And that's where the book ends, is him standing over them, just kind of, you know, looking at what he has done to them.
Yeah. Ghost of Peter Parker also looking on.
Yeah, they've done this thing.
Horror.
Yeah, they've done this thing in this book where the Ghost of Peter Parker is kind of following Ock around, and it's a way to let readers know that Peter does still exist in some way.
But that's you just wanting to not believe it's really his ghost.
I don't want to believe it's his ghost. I thought to myself it would be much more clever if this was a plot device for the reader to understand that Ock is kind of holding back because a part of Peter still exists in there, and that it was a plot device for us, the reader, to help us understand that. And that's not the case. What we've come to find out as we've gone along is it actually is...
Have they made that clear? Yeah. It is just straight up his ghost?
It is kind of a ghost of Peter Parker that's kind of rooting around in Ock's memories.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he's trying to find a way to gain a foothold back into his own psyche. But yeah, he's constantly freaking out about what Ock is doing in this book because Ock's kind of making him look bad.
I haven't been reading this book every week it comes out, but it is something I flip through every week, and I talk to people about what's going on in it.
Yeah,
because it's one of the more interesting things coming out.
Right, for sure. And one of the big relevant things in this issue and in this series as we've gone along is people that are close to Peter are starting to realize that this is not him, or that something's wrong with him, something's changed. And the people who start to realize that in this issue are the Avengers. And they have a conversation about, is it time to ask Peter to not be an Avenger anymore? And Wolverine makes a point that he's sitting at the table with killers and spies, and these people that have all done horrible things in their life. So why are we going to ostracize Spider-Man for something that we've all done, all of us sitting here at the table? But you know, witnessing him brutally beat Screwball and Jester really makes them take action, and their setup for the next issue, in classic fashion, is really cool. The way they did this is the AVX logo, but it's AVSM. So what we're understanding is that when we get to the next issue, number 7, the Avengers are going to go after him and question him and probably want to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
But you know, all of that aside, it's a fantastic book all throughout. The first 6 issues have been amazing. The artist Humberto Ramos takes over doing this book. I know a lot of you probably remember him from Amazing Spider-Man. He's been a Spider-Man artist for years. He's really, really good, and this issue's no exception. It's beautifully, beautifully drawn.
I didn't realize... Yeah, I just realized that that's issue 6. That's a really great way to end a trade.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, with the setup for the Avengers coming
that's
after
a solid
him.
way.
Yeah. So yeah, I cannot wait to see what happens when they come after him, because, again, people have just started to notice that he's not the same person.
Yeah. And
it's finally all coming to a head, and we knew it would. So yeah, definitely check out Superior Spider-Man if you're a Spider-Man fan. It's a great, great read. Like I said, a lot of people have been kind of not reading it because of protest for what has happened to Peter, but it's great. It's really a fun, fun book.
All right. I'm going to talk about Michael A. Van Oming's Wild Rover and the Sacrifice first. I just read this a few minutes ago. It's 2 stories that are unrelated. I will be honest, I did not read the second one, The Sacrifice, yet, but I'm going to. I just read Wild Rover. It was awesome. I don't know. I always try and pick up when there's a number one or a one-shot coming out on Dark Horse or Image. I try to at least give it a read. This week, I picked this up and bought it without knowing what I was getting into. And it was kind of a judging a book by its cover type thing. It was, I saw the Wild Rover. I've been listening to a lot of Irish music. That's an Irish song. And I saw a dude who looked pretty grizzled pouring alcohol or blood from an alcohol bottle into the mouth of some Lovecraftian demon, and I thought, that looks cool. So I just read this. I just read the Wild Rover part of it, at least. And it reads at first like a book explaining this guy's alcoholism from his point of view, and him comparing it to having a demon living inside of his stomach. And I'm like, as I'm reading, I'm thinking, okay, this isn't really a supernatural book. This is just a really clever analogy for addiction to vices in general, because it's not just alcoholism, but that does seem to be the core of this guy's problems in the book. And then as I read on, I realize that this is a supernatural book, and he really does have a demon living in his stomach. And he's talking about how he drinks to make the demon shut up, but in the long run it just makes it stronger. And the ghost of his mother visits him and tells him that this is in fact a curse on the family, and he's like, no, I'm just an alcoholic. And she's like, no, we were witches and alcoholics, and this is a curse on our family, and you have to use that to break it.
It's layer upon layer.
It's awesome, yeah. So yeah, because I really like. I mean, it starts it, and it's very clear, like, yeah, that's what this book is. But I was like, no, that's not what this book is. And then it's like, yeah, this is what that book is. So he realizes that he does have to make it stronger. He has to drink until it's strong enough, until the American. He says it's the American bourbon demon, and it's the only one of its kind. It's the first of its kind. He has to drink until it becomes strong enough to become earthly, and he can kill it. And he does, and he kills this demon that is embodied in the alcohol that America is famous for, bourbon, whiskey.
Right.
And then after that, he realizes after he's killed it, the beast in his stomach is still there, but it's weaker, it's asleep. And he's drinking, and the ghost of his mother's talking to him and telling him, you took the first step, you can break this curse, you were born for it. Next you need to go to Russia and consume vodka and kill that demon. And then Greece and drink red wine, the blood of the gods, and kill that one. And then you need to go to, so on and so forth. And I turned the page and the story was over. And I was like, that's awesome. I don't want this to just be a one-shot. So I flipped through, and I find this page right at the end before the final advertisement in the book. And it says, if you want to read more of Michael Avon Oeming's Wild Rover, let us know. Email us at dhp@darkhorse.com, and it's got what looks like potential cover art. So, I'd be honest, I really hope that some people read this. I'm definitely going to email Dark Horse. This is definitely not a book for, anyone who's a kid to age 15, unless you're 15 and reading Hellblazer and your parents are cool with that.
Right.
And I mean, darker issues of Hellblazer. This is definitely a book that isn't afraid to talk about, the dark underbelly of vice and...
Right. It sounds like it deals with real adult issues.
It is, yeah, it's very adult issues, and I mean, and not in the sense of, just vulgar for the sake of vulgar. I mean, it's kind of like...
It has something to say.
Yeah, he's totally and what it has to say is this guy is an alcoholic, and he's going to fight demons. And that's cool.
It's pretty awesome.
I think it was pretty awesome. I'm glad that it caught my eye on the shelf. I'm glad that I saw it said one shot, because those two things were definitely selling points for me. I like to be able to say, hey, this independent book came out to people who don't normally read independent books, and say, hey, it's a number one, a one shot, either of those things, and just give it a shot. It's really good. Independent publishers are where my roots in comics are at, and I think that my choices today kind of show that.
Absolutely.
Even though I've been reading a lot of superhero stuff lately. But yeah, it was a good book. I recommend picking it up if you're all right with some vulgarness, and if you like stories that are kind of like old Hellblazer. It really reminded me of that, and that's kind of funny given what me and Jason are both about to review.
Constantine, yeah. All right, my second review for the night, as I said earlier, is Justice League of America #2. Again, I wish I could be starting with #1, just because this book has introduced, and I'm going to preface this with a spoiler alert, this book has introduced something in the New 52 universe that was only hinted at, which is the Secret Society. And those of you that remember Old 52 know who the Secret Society is. You understand how far their reach extends. And it also brought us Professor Ivo and his robots, which is awesome. That is something that was part of Old 52 continuity. It was part of the cartoon world. Everybody who knows DC knows who Ivo is. That's just, he's a name that you remember.
I have no idea, I gotta be honest.
If you're a DC fan. I mean, like, I preface that with that because, you know, there was Professor Ivo's robot was a villain that they turned into a hero that became a good part of the cartoons and the comic world.
What was its name?
It was just called Professor Ivo's robot.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was the robot. But no, this book, the first issue was great. The first issue showed us the reason they're putting this team together is Amanda Waller thinks that she might someday have to take down the Justice League. That if ever these people who are not tied to any government and don't fall under any United Nation purview would turn against us, we have to be able to stop them. We need a response team to be able to call on. And she selects some pretty interesting characters, and she selects them based on their ability to take down key Justice League members. So she selects Martian Manhunter for Superman, Catwoman for Batman, Simon Baz, the Green Lantern, for Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern, and so on and so forth. They all have a very specific, you know, this is the person you're meant to take down if this ever happens.
So Simon Baz is not on the Justice League?
No. Hal Jordan, I mean, the stuff that's going on in Green Lantern has taken Hal Jordan out of the book for a little while, but he will be back. He will be a part of Justice League again. He is the Green Lantern for Justice League. But this issue in particular was really awesome because it delves deeper into Ivo as a character. It starts off with the Scarecrow kidnapped, essentially, and he's chained to a chair. And the person that comes to talk to him is what I assume is Professor Ivo. He is not. They don't actually name him as that, but he's the villain that is the first face of the Secret Society. So it's assumed that that's who this is. He interrogates Scarecrow. He tells him that if he ever needs help, he can call on the Secret Society, but the Secret Society will want something in return. That's how they get villains on their side. We'll help you if you have a problem with a hero, if you have a problem with the police, anything like that, we'll help you, but we're going to call on you. And so this issue then goes into most of the team kind of at a meeting, waiting to talk to Steve Trevor, who everybody, if you've been reading Justice League, remember he was their liaison, and now he is the Justice League of America's liaison. There's actually a pretty funny moment between Vibe and Hawkman, where Hawkman just kind of comes into the table and just slams his mace down on the table, and he's covered in blood. And, you know, Vibe asks him, "Are you okay?" And he kind of just goes, "Why?" And Vibe says, "Well, because you're covered in blood." He goes, "Not my blood." You know, like, it's a pretty funny moment where you understand that this guy's just like a cold-blooded kind of guy. And he doesn't really fit with this team of people who are talkers and they're lighthearted. Vibe's kind of if you've been reading Vibe, he's a very lighthearted character. He wants people to like him, so he's kind of trying to overplease people. But the issue goes into some awesome things about why the team is together, what their goal is, what their focus is going to be, and then we kind of jump to Steve Trevor talking to Martian Manhunter over Green Arrow's body. He's not dead, he's just unconscious. He got into a fight in the first issue with what we were to understand was Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Now, obviously, anybody who knows Ivo knows those are robots. So they're kind of, he asked Martian Manhunter to scan Green Arrow's memory for the events that happened. He's been unconscious since they brought him in. They haven't got a chance to question him. And what Martian Manhunter sees in Green Arrow's mind is that he got beat up by Batman. That the reason he's unconscious is because of Batman. Now, Martian Manhunter's not connecting these dots and understanding this is a robot version of Batman, but we, the viewer, looking at it, know it's a robot. So then it goes into he gathers the team, and they go out in search of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman in this area where Green Arrow fell. And that is actually the first time that we see them for what they really are. We see them, I mean, Wonder Woman and Superman, maybe not so much, kind of look more akin to what they are, but Batman definitely is a robot. You can see it. He doesn't have a face. He has metal, you know? So it's definitely, and that's where they cut this issue, is Wonder Woman kind of throws her lasso at Steve and just says, Steve, you shouldn't have come here. So obviously he's also programmed within them the memories of these people, at least what he knows of their memories, because she knows his name is Steve. Wonder Woman, and if you remember, if you've been reading Justice League, Wonder Woman and Steve kind of had a thing, and then it kind of fell apart. Whatever, that was kind of why Steve Trevor distanced himself from the Justice League in the first place. The big thing I want to talk about for this issue is the backup story, which was amazing. It tells of a man who is sneaking into the White House to shoot the president, and you are treated to his thought bubbles the whole time. So he's talking about the security of the White House, and how he can circumvent it, how the security has changed because of superhumans. And you kind of see this man following him around the whole time, but not obviously. He's just always kind of in the panel with him. And the man literally gets all the way to the Oval Office, pulls out a gun, aims it at the president, and then all of a sudden he has a hand through his head. And you see this man that has been following him around, and he says, Mr. President, your security measures are not enough. And he changes, and it's John Johns, the Martian Manhunter. He says, you need us. This was to, the Martian Manhunter could have shut this guy down at any time, but he allowed him to get to the point where he was about to shoot the president, to show the president that the Justice League of America is a team that is a necessary element in this world. And the issue ends with the president at a press conference with all the Justice League of America members saying, we welcome the Justice League of America as part of our country and part of our security and stuff like that. So it was a really interesting little backup story to show kind of what the function of this team is going to be in the world. And so yeah, I mean, I can't recommend this enough. It's been really, really good. We've only seen 2 issues, and I'm already hooked. They've introduced the Secret Society again, Professor Ivo, things that I've been waiting to see in New 52 since they began New 52.
Who is the leader?
We don't know. In the old 52 continuity, it was Savage, Vandal Savage. Okay. So maybe that's who it is now, but it's New 52, so things have changed. Mm-hmm. So we don't really know until we get to see the Secret Society. I would bet dollars to donuts that Lex Luthor is a part of it.
Really?
Yeah. Just because he's always tied into any kind of deep villain scheme that's going on in the larger picture of the New 52 universe.
I thought you were saying that you would bet he is a part of the Justice League of America.
No, I would bet that he is a part of the Secret Society.
Okay. No, yeah,
for sure.
That's fair.
He's always tied into villain schemes in some way. Lex Luthor doesn't miss things. And you would never know it. That's the cool thing about his character, is you would never know he was part of some evil villain club. Yeah. You know? So yeah, it's an amazing book. Check it out. We've got #1 in here. #2 just came out this week. So yeah, check them out. It's an excellent time to jump in if you haven't read any New 52 stuff yet, or if you're just looking for something, you've been enjoying it, you're looking for something new to take on. Justice League of America is that book. Check it out.
Right on. All right, my second book, Star Wars Legacy, #1. I was extremely excited about this book coming out.
I want to preface what you're talking about by saying my only disappointment in this was that Ostrander's not doing it.
Yeah, I think that's...
Did you read it?
Did you read it, though?
The creative team that did the original Star Wars Legacy is not a part of it.
Not the same creative team, but one issue in, I gotta say, I'm on board for this. Like, this is pretty awesome. You could pick this up without having read Star Wars Legacy.
Absolutely.
But there are some things that... I feel like as it goes on, you'll become more acquainted with the world that they're in, since it is such a long time after the Star Wars world we're used to. The technology, the visuals are all, it's Star Wars. Like, it looks like Star Wars. There are a few things like stormtroopers have different masks. They look updated. It's clear that not all of them are human at this point, but the political situation in the Star Wars universe is different. It's clear immediately that there is a triumvirate between the Empire, the Galactic Alliance, and the Jedi, who are not a political organization. Which I mean, that's an interesting thing coming in. That's something that's very different about this. It's not the Empire that you know, if you have not read Legacy. If you have read Legacy, you know what I mean. But it's called the Fel Empire, and that's F-E-L. If you've read any of the later novels, you'll know that name. But Fel is a pilot who fights with the Galactic Alliance and the Empire, I think, at several points in Luke Skywalker's lifetime. You open up Star Wars Legacy, the old series. I'm pointing at the trades.
Trade shelves are that way.
It's immediately obvious. There is still an empire, and it's the Fel Empire, and it's clearly based on Palpatine's empire, but less sinister. It doesn't seem to be sinister at all. If anything, it seems to be kind of a neutral force. Like it simply is a galactic monarchy.
Yeah.
And they have a group of Force sensitives called the Imperial Knights who wear this really awesome suit of red armor. Looks like Stormtrooper armor, but they have black capes and they have white sabers. And at first, when you're reading the Old Legacy, it's like, okay, these guys are clearly bad guys. And then as you go on, you realize, like, no, they are simply purely an allegiance of the Empire. The Empire's not evil, so they're whatever alignment, if you will.
You immediately assume they're evil because you're used to the Emperor's
yeah.
guards with
So it's
the
really,
red.
it's an interesting twist. But the story of the old one was that the Emperor had been, he is a Force sensitive. He is an Imperial Knight himself. The Emperor has been tricked by a Sith Lord named Darth Krayt, who is very, very old, survived the Clone Wars, and was a Jedi. He has been tricked by Darth Krayt into believing the Jedi caused some atrocity, and he starts wiping out the Jedi, and it's another Jedi purge. And it follows Cade Skywalker, who I think is like the great-great-great-grandson of Luke Skywalker. Yeah. And he is
hundreds of years later.
Yeah,
So
like,
yeah.
he is not the kind of Skywalker you expect. I mean, he has the whininess that all the Skywalkers have, plus the awesomeness that like Han Solo had. He's a space pirate, and you go back through his history and see how he was a Jedi, and he's become the space pirate, and he wants to forget everything about the Force, and he wants to push it all away because he survived the Purge. As far as he knows, he's the only survivor. And as that story goes on, it gradually shows him embracing the Force again and fighting Darth Krayt. I didn't finish that series yet. I have not finished that series yet, sorry. I plan to, I'm going to. It's one of my favorite Star Wars things in general. And it was one of 2 books that introduced me to Star Wars, or into comics, both of which were Star Wars books. This is a follow-up. It looks to be about 10 years after that series, and it follows Anya Solo is her name, and she is obviously a descendant of Han Solo and Leia. I don't know what the relation is. I don't know if she's Force sensitive. So far, I have no reason to believe she is. But they introduce her as being somebody who owns a junkyard on some backwater planet. And she's got very much the attitude of Han Solo and Leia. She's very like rambunctious, confident, overconfident. Very much Han Solo's overconfidence.
Absolutely. That's relevant right away.
But it jumps back and forth. It has the format of a film in that I'll read 2 pages and see what's happening in this part of the galaxy with this character, this Imperial Knight, and then it jumps back to Anya Solo and her friend, who is a Mon Calamari, fishman. And
It's a trap.
yeah, it's a trap. No, pretty much, okay, you get a Star Wars book and you put a fishman in it, you put a Mon Calamari in it, I'm probably going to think that character's cool. It's not that I like fish, it's not that I like fish people, it's just that for some reason Mon Calamari characters tend to be really cool.
Yeah.
It's got my favorite Star Wars character in it, Master Kruk. I don't know how to say that, but he's like...
I think that's probably
I think it is, yes. It's K''K''R''U''K. He is a Jedi Master, and his species lives a long time. They're Wiffids. So he is in the original cartoon of Clone Wars that was done by the guys who did Samurai Jack. You see him for a minute. I don't think they say him by name, but he is this guy with tusks fighting General Grievous, and he's got a samurai like a straw hat on.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
you see him in that, yeah, and he gets struck down by Grievous, and you're like, oh, that guy died. And then it like closes up on his hat, I think. And then he was in comics, and a running thing with him is, yeah, like his species lives hundreds of years, but it's been a running thing with this character that he dies a lot. But his hat always survives. But I mean, obviously, it turns out he hasn't died.
Right, yeah. Yeah, he's still around.
He has managed to escape death in Dark Times, which is the other series that got me into Star Wars. I read that before Legacy. He is a Jedi Master during Order 66, and he senses what's about to happen, and all of the Jedis he's with are younglings. They're like 8 years old.
Yeah,
and he slaughters the clone soldiers before they can even open fire, because he senses it's about to happen immediately. And it flashes forward to him, like he's wearing normal clothes, and he's in a tree with a bow and arrow, and all these Jedis, and he is taking out a unit of clone troopers, like with a bow and arrow.
Yep.
And it just shows, like, for years and years and years, he just went underground and protected all these Force-sensitive kids. I'm going off on a tangent. This book's awesome. That character's awesome. That character's in this book. Read this book. It's Star Wars Legacy #1 on Dark Horse. It's by, I guess that's Becco and Hardman.
Yeah.
Not the same creative team that did Legacy. Those guys are legendary for their work on Legacy.
They're in the process right now of doing Dawn of the Jedi, which is a fantastic series.
I was not aware they were.
Yeah, Ostrander and Decima. They did the far future, and now they're doing the far
Okay.
past. So yeah, it's
Interesting.
Understandable why
that
they're
makes
not
sense.
doing
Yeah.
Legacy. Yeah.
See, thing is, for years I'd been out of comics for years until I started working here again, and it was just like, bam, I'm back into comics. And one thing that happened is I didn't get caught back up with everything I was reading on Star Wars. Fortunately, I have the trade for Dawn of the Jedi waiting for me. And I'm going to read that. I did not know that was the same people. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Right on. So the comic that we're going to review together is Constantine #1, and we went back and forth. Is this a comic that we can review together?
We were talking about this for weeks too.
Yeah.
I mean, since we found out
since the end of Hellblazer.
Since the end of Hellblazer.
But I'm going to go into what I think, and then Nate will go into what he
I should go into what I think, because I think your review is going to be more happy.
It's not happy, but there are. I mean, because it's a bittersweet moment.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Hellblazer was such an amazing series.
It is, yeah, and I certainly don't have a bad review for it.
Right,
But I think I don't know. I think that you have more.
There is
optimistic
points that I use to show that this is still Constantine. This is still the Constantine that we remember. This is still the Constantine that we know. He's just younger. It's just a different take on him as a character because they're throwing him in the DC universe.
I think what makes it feel like a different Constantine is not so much that they're writing him as a different character, but they have to put him in a higher fantasy world.
Right.
Like if anyone's read Hellblazer, like yeah, he can use magic, but like 99% of what he gets by on is wit and not magic, because magic's not all that powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's really Constantine in a world that has higher fantasy.
Yeah. You put him in the DC universe with the cape people, with the people who have a lot of magical power. It changes your view of him as a character.
For sure.
And it changes how he has to interact with the world.
Yeah, and it changes his motives too. So I mean, I would say he does some things in this book that are like, yeah, this is, and I don't think we should spoil anything. Let's just say he does some classic Constantine.
How do you not spoil something?
It's a #1.
I know that, but every talking point I have about this book is talking about very specific details. All right, fair enough. So yeah, go ahead. Say what you want to say.
Yeah, I mean, in classic Constantine fashion, he lets someone down to get his way. And yeah, like, it's for the greater good, like, it usually, I won't say always is, usually is with Constantine. So, I mean, yeah, this is very much like, this isn't just a character that they were like, let's make him blonde and have him wear a khaki trench coat and call him Constantine. Like, it's not what me and my brother have always referred to as label slappers. I don't know if anyone else uses that term.
I'm unfamiliar.
First time I heard it, he said that Final Fantasy VIII was a label slapper. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, they made a game about chocobos and called it Final Fantasy. And I was like, okay.
Fair enough. Okay.
So, yeah, label slapper has always been a term in my head. My brother planted that seed. But yeah, I expected this to be that. Yeah, sorry. Tangents, again. I expected this to be that. I expected this book to be crap. And I read it today, actually, and it was not crap. Like, even though I kind of wanted it to not be a good book and wanted to not like it because I really loved Hellblazer and I loved the Vertigo Constantine, it was a good book. Like, it's still hard for me to embrace this kind of character in the DC world with people like Batman and Superman. But it's a good book. Like, it was a good book. That's all I can really say. And plus, like, I'm not reading a lot of DC books, but I have a general idea of what's going on in, like, the overarching big picture, and I know about the Trinity.
Yeah.
And I have a decent idea of who, like, Pandora is. This is a pretty solid character to go up against characters like that. Like, that's a classic.
I have a feeling Constantine will be a major part of their event this summer is going to be the Trinity War, and it refers to Pandora, the Phantom Stranger, and the Question, these deep-rooted magical people that were sentenced to these long lives to watch mankind by the Council of the Rock. And so I have no doubt in my head that Constantine will be a central part of that story, just because he understands magic better than most people. He understands what danger it brings, and that you have to respect it, and it's not something you can toy with.
And that's actually kind of a big difference from Vertigo Constantine. Because in the same sense in this book, it seems like he actually... Because in Vertigo, that would be advice he would give, and I wouldn't even say advice.
Follow it.
Yeah, like it's very much like, I don't know, man. Constantine's such a complex character. It's very much like simultaneously a martyr complex type thing, where like, yeah, I'm the one who's supposed to do this. I'm the one who's brought this pain and the price that you pay for using magic and cheating death and cheating fate. But at the same time, he's always so proud of himself.
Yes.
Up until the point he wins and realizes what he's done. And this Constantine seems like he's very willing to do what he has to do, and not so much like, not so self-loathing. So far, I mean, this is issue 1. We'll see.
Right.
But
they're also presenting him as a much younger character.
They are, yeah.
So what you
True,
what you can understand is that he hasn't lived long enough to have that sense of self-loathing.
That's true. I hope that we get to live through his self-loathing journey all over again, because it's great.
I personally, like I said, I was skeptical about the idea of a ongoing book about Constantine, just because of Hellblazer and how awesome it was and what they did with it. But I really enjoyed this. Like, I didn't think I was going to. I kept saying to everybody, like, it's going to be good, but inside I was like, oh, it's not going to be good. But it surprised me. And
I was being honest. I was like, I'm not looking forward to it.
Right. One of the things that right away just made me smile was he's coming out of a bar, and a girl is standing there, and she says, hey, mystery man, hey, John Constantine, Papa's looking for you. Okay, and everybody who read Hellblazer remembers Papa Midnight.
That was my immediate thought, too.
Yeah, he's an amazing character. He's not in the book, but the reference is there, which means he is a part of this world. And
which should be interesting
to
see what they do with him in New 52, because it's a higher fantasy world.
Right.
And he's a high fantasy character.
Exactly. You can't say Papa without people knowing that they're talking about Papa Midnight. That's who they're talking about.
Or Biggie Smalls.
I would be interested if Biggie Smalls popped up in the Constantine book. But Nate's right. Like,
he does fight ghosts.
It's true. But Nate's right. Like, what they did good about this book is we can tell that, yes, this is the same man, because he kind of forms a bond with this kid throughout the first issue, and you feel like he's kind of like a little sidekick to Constantine right now. Mm-hmm. And then at the first opportunity where he has to make a choice between this kid's life and saving himself and walking away with this piece of...
It's very reminiscent of how...
of this magical item.
This issue is actually very reminiscent of the first Constantine, or the first Hellblazer arc.
Absolutely.
Where his friend comes back from... where did...
You're talking about Original Sin.
Yeah, where did Burroughs live?
I don't remember. Man, it's been so long since there have been 300 issues.
It's been
so long. I usually have a very good memory.
And I want to point out...
comics.
I want to point out, people tend to think that I'm like this Hellblazer... like, well-read Hellblazer fan, but that's not the case. What happened is, like 2 years ago, my brother gave me Dangerous Habits as a birthday present. I read it and was blown away. And that's the only arc that I've read cover to cover. I've read a few issues here and there of the New Milligan run, but I hadn't been following it really heavily. And I've read the first half of Original Sins, and that's several arcs, so I'm not ashamed to say that I read the first half, because I read complete arcs there.
Right.
But, that character and the way he was written, and especially Dangerous Habits, impacted me so heavily that after that being the first one I read, I was immediately convinced that, like, this character, John Constantine, is, if not my favorite character in comics, one of my favorite characters ever.
He's definitely in the top 5, for sure.
And the only reason I haven't continued to read it from there is because right now they're reprinting the trades in chronological order, and I'm waiting for that.
Right, with the numbering, so you know,
I'm waiting for that.
That was always a problem with the Constantine trades, was telling people, like, I know Original Sin is the first one, but after that I couldn't tell you what order they come in. They didn't have numbers on them.
And it's a series you don't have to read in chronological order, but it helps.
Each arc is its own very unique story, with a setup, a very good climax, and an ending. It's just a really well-written,
But if you read it in chronological order, the subtle changes in Constantine's personality are very clear and concise, and you get to see why he becomes who he becomes, and what happened to him, and what damage he caused in other people's lives and in his own.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you can read a single arc and understand what's going on, or you can read the whole thing and have this overarching story of this man's life.
Yeah.
And who he is, and it's excellent. It is such a good story, and he's a great character. I'm sorry.
No, awesome. Bottom line is he's still in a trench coat. He's still blonde. He's still British,
And he's still a bastard.
and he's still a jerk. Yeah. So check out Constantine #1.
Does he still smoke?
Yes, he still
Okay.
smokes.
Sold.
Yeah. If you're a fan, if you were a fan of Hellblazer, check it out because he's been in Justice League Dark since they
Check it
started.
out if you're not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just a fan of Justice League Dark, I'm reading one DC title with the exception of like the occasional crossover, and that's Batman. So I really don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But I picked this up, and right now I'm weighing whether or not it's going to be a monthly read for me. I definitely like.
We'll have to. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. We'll have to see what they do with issue 2.
We'll
before we
revisit
can
that
make
on
a-
issue 2.
Absolutely.
I mean, even if it's not a book that we're both reviewing or that one of us is reviewing, we'll revisit it and tell you what we both thought of issue 2 and if
Absolutely.
we're still reading it.
Yeah. So yeah,
Because
that's
it's been a controversial thing. I mean, within the comics
yeah.
world.
Oh,
A
absolutely.
lot of people have been talking about it, and a lot of people have been upset. I actually know somebody, Mike Capuano, who used to work here, used to buy books from him. I don't know if I should say his full name.
I think it's okay. Everybody, I mean, if you've come into the store, you know who Capuano is.
That's a good point.
For sure.
Anyway, so he was such a big Hellblazer fan that when they announced that it was ending, he dropped all of his DC books from his pull. And then today started buying DC books again, including Constantine. And he read it and said he was satisfied. So, I mean, that gives you an idea. Like, this is somebody who literally dropped all the DC books he was reading because they canceled Hellblazer. And then when Constantine #1 came out, he read it and liked it and started picking up DC again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I think that should say enough. Like, it's a good book.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something to check out, and yeah, like you said, we'll definitely revisit it when we come back for issue 2 next month. So yeah.
Okay, so the trade I am reviewing this week is The Massive, which is a book that has been really good. I think it might have been the first book that I picked up as I got back into comics when I started working here last year. And it's Brian Wood, who I really need to just stop talking him up. But the dude's
I think
great.
that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really like his work, and he is really prevalent in the comics industry right now. He's getting ready to be doing X-Men. But this book is in a post-war, post-crash, post-disaster, post-everything world. The environmental action trawler, Capital, point ship of the Direct Action Environmentalist Group, Ninth Wave, must traverse a planet where environmental and social collapse have changed the world's landscape. So basically, it just throws you right into it. You're following these characters. The main character, if you can say there's a main character, his books are all very character-driven. But kind of the key person out of the protagonist is Kayla Misriel, an ex-mercenary who, for some reason, disappeared, went off the grid sometime in the 90s, and came back into the spotlight this time as the leader of an environmental group, direct action group called Ninth Wave. And what that means is they're the kind of guys who get in a converted patrol boat and go harass whaling ships. They go harass oil ships that are doing things wrong.
Right.
And they also are the kind of ship that would go and help clean up an oil spill, would rescue animals from poachers and things like that, would arrest poachers and then turn them into either like international police, like that kind of group, essentially.
Yeah.
But
The Whale Wars.
exactly, yeah, like the show Whale Wars.
Yeah.
What's interesting is it follows them after the environment has gone to hell, and they don't explain why that happened, but it kind of shows you, in the beginning, there were earthquakes and tsunamis and giant storms and just pods of whales coming up and floating on the surface dead, and nobody knew why. And at the same time, there was economic collapse, probably because of the first part, and because of wars that were happening. So not only was the environment and like the animals that lived in it and clean water and all those things becoming scarce, but also governments were collapsing. The federal government, from the glimpse that we've seen of it in the book, has kind of become a shell of what it was. Other governments are non-existent or barely existent. And it just shows the crew of this ship, the Capital, traversing this world, trying to make way, trying to not starve to death, while remaining true to their ideals, and while trying to find their missing sister ship, the Massive, who was the group's like PR ship. They were the science research vessel, the more palatable version of what the Ninth Wave was, and still a very real part of the Ninth Wave. But they haven't seen the ship in months, except for every now and then they'll see it on their radar, or they'll get part of a distress signal, or something like that, or a report that somebody saw it, and they cannot find the ship. They're always one step behind. And that is the main overarching plot. That's the main problem of the story.
Massive, yeah.
We gotta find the Massive. This book's great. Brian Wood is great at writing dialogue. He doesn't have characters that say everything in a speech or a monologue like a lot of books do. And good books do that still. That's just a trope in comics.
Yeah.
But it's strange to read a comic that doesn't do that sometimes, if you're reading a lot of books that do.
Yeah, they talk like normal people. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's very much like he writes his characters very well. They all have their own motives and their own reasons for being where they are, and their own hang-ups and things like that. And it translates well into the conversations that the characters are having with each other, into the actions that they take in the course of the story.
Right.
Brian Wood has always been a writer I liked, even when I didn't know that he was writing the book that I was reading back in the day. I used to read DMZ. And yeah, I mean, he's very good. I highly recommend picking this up. Even if you've been reading The Massive, I recommend picking up the trade, because in the very back of the trade, and I don't think they're going to release these in a zero issue, it's got... No, I can't find it. Wait, can I find it? No, I can't find it. There was a page I was going to read that explains what it is. But basically, it's got 2 short stories that appeared in Dark Horse Presents before The Massive was a series, and they are little short stories that show you some of the characters before this collapse and before Ninth Wave and who they are. And you get to see a bit of their past.
Kind of a good little backstory for
Definitely.
The book.
Yeah, I mean, people who were reading Dark Horse Presents, it was their first glimpse of the Massive. It was the first published Massive stories. And it's a great book. Highly recommend picking it up. And that's my pick for the week.
Right on. As I said earlier, my trade is not actually a trade. It is a book of Star Wars art. And it is beautiful. Everything about this is great. I mean, just to find something random, you know, boom.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Jabba the Hutt, his palace. You got Lando here in the front. You got Leia looking hot in her slave Leia outfit. It's just a fantastic thing. It's got some conceptual stuff, some stuff they did.
Awesome. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
It's like pop art.
Yeah, pop art. Some stuff they did for the movies. Some stuff they just did, kind of as a poster stuff you've seen. It's a great book. It doesn't really have any dialogue. You don't have to read anything other than little descriptions about who did the art and
Left
where
side,
it came from.
This, right side, that. It's a coffee table book.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely a coffee table book. But it's just beautiful. Like, I looked around on the shelf for some different trades, and there was just nothing that really jumped out at me but this. And I am a huge Star Wars fan. Original trilogy all the way. Wasn't as big of a fan of the prequel trilogy. I liked it for what it was. I understood why they needed it.
The plot points are important to me as a Star Wars fan, but the performance and the dialogue
was just... And I don't... Like I said, I loved it for what it represented, but that was pretty much it. Everything else about it just kind of hurt me as a Star Wars fan. But this book is great. It does some things with the original trilogy art. There's some... Yeah, there's some prequel trilogy art in here, which I don't think I've actually flipped to one of those pages yet. But yeah, it's just a fantastic little book. That
Salacious B. Crumb.
Yeah,
that's who that is. He's
right.
Cool.
That just shows some really cool moments from the movies, and even some stuff that's not even from the movies. I mean, like, I can't particularly find any of it right now, but
yeah, I wonder if the Gorax is in here.
It's possible.
Oh wait! That was art for. I think that was a cover from Rebellion.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, Luke in battle armor. That's from... Oh no, it was Star Wars miniature packaging.
For Wizard of the Coast, 2007. So yeah, that's some stuff that you get out of here too. It's just some art they've done for different products that they've released.
I remember that promo.
Really?
I do.
I did play the Star Wars miniature game, but I don't have that good of a memory for stuff like that.
I just distinctly remember that painting because I really liked it.
Here you get a collage of pretty much all the main characters from the entire saga. So you've got Grievous in there, you've got Maul, you've got Vader, some Jedi that you probably don't even know their names.
There's Darth Flannel right there.
That looks like George Lucas.
Yeah, Darth.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Darth Flannel.
Okay, that's yeah. I guess I should have picked up on that.
Yeah.
But,
Good. Yeah. Good job.
Right. Anyway, it's a fantastic book. It really is cool. It's got some interesting stuff in it. It's moderately priced.
Check this out. See, this is the problem with books like this. Is I'm just like, ooh, look
Right,
at that.
it just
Ooh, look
stop.
at that.
Like, let me see that. It's only a $40 book, which is
Yeah.
awesome considering what it is. It's huge, it's thick, it's got a lot of pages. But yeah, if you're a Star Wars fan, or if you've ever enjoyed just looking at some cool art, I mean, it's a worthwhile thing to have. But obviously there's no story, so there's not really too much I can say about it other than that. But it's in my store. If you come in here, man, just flip through it. Even if you're not going to pick it up, just check it out. It's a really cool read. It's a really cool art book. Some really cool stuff to look at in there for Star Wars fans and non-fans alike, for sure. So that is going to wrap up episode 2 of Illustrated Beards.
This concludes our chat.
I feel like this concludes our broadcast day.
Indeed. Don't adjust your screens. Our beards really are this big.
Indeed. So, I wanted to throw out an apology. We had some technical problems trying to get the first video uploaded, so it literally just went up today. We've worked out those bugs. We're fixing it. We're better at it now.
This one will probably go up tomorrow, which by the time you see this will be today.
Okay, yeah. We're going to have the doctor in here to explain how this all works and how it's going to happen. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Again, we welcome any criticisms, any kind of comments that you might have. We are planning on doing a poll. Illustrated Beards is a working title. I like it, personally. I think we should just keep it and go with it. But
I like it too, but I'm not quite sure that it's descriptive enough. But we will eventually let you decide when we feel that democracy is the course we need to take.
we're gonna end up putting a poll online with some different names we've come up with. Any suggestions that you guys have for a cool name for it too? I would like to incorporate the idea of the beard thing. That's why we came up with Illustrated Beards in the first place. But yeah, so any feedback would be absolutely helpful. But thanks for joining us,
Indeed.
and we will see you next week.
And cut.